and the neighbor kids and their buddies and stuff. So after the night kind of wore down, a couple of them pulled me off in the corner and said, hey, we know how to do whitetail hunting. We sit in trees and we shoot arrows. But we don't know anything about this big country stuff, and we know you do. Would you teach us? Well, you'd say no to that. You don't say no to that. You embrace it and you go.
Chip Leer. Wildside.
Welcome to Chip Leer's Wildside podcast. Thanks for joining us here today. This is a really insightful conversation today with a man that has evoked emotions in ourselves as we have looked at his work. Over 50 years as a professional photographer, Mitch Kezar. We're going to learn a lot of things about Mitch and his thoughts on the environment and what we have to do as sportsmen to preserve that moving forward. But before we get there, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel. If you're watching on YouTube, drop down and click subscribe. If you're listening on whatever audio device you like to listen to podcasts, subscribe. We want to have you a part of our Wildside family so you can stay abreast of all that's going on. There's lots going on here as well as at chipleer.com, where we offer a newsletter that keeps you up to date of everything happening in the outdoors. So drop back there, become a member. It's all free, and we'll have this stuff delivered to your door frequently. But today, Mitch, he's been nominated for the Pulitzer Prize twice, worked with Time, Newsweek, found himself on the front lines of presidential campaigns. He has also turned that passion of photography into his passion for the outdoors and built a career that is really unparalleled. It's amazing. He's worked for the biggest names in the outdoors, manufacturers as well as corporations, as they try to share the outdoor experience and rally more people into it. He's inspired hundreds of other photographers through his website called Wendigo Images, which is the largest catalog of outdoor photography in fishing, hunting, and all the outdoors. It's an incredible place. It's been an incredible career, and he's still going strong. So sit back, relax, and listen to the man that evokes emotion through images, Mitch Kezar. What a fantastic opportunity. I've been looking forward to sitting down with you, Mitch, for quite some time here, because there are few people that can invoke emotion when I'm just looking at a printed page or video screen, and you've got that ability. You've been inspiring us to fish, hunt, get outdoors for a lot of years, and it's really a cool opportunity. Thanks for taking time to sit with us today on the podcast.
Glad to be here. Really glad. Thanks for having me, boys.
Well, if you're, we went through the intro, a long, lengthy, accolade-filled intro, I might add, with that. But I think one of the first things I want to do is I want to just pull up some of your photos here, so right away, so we can just dive into what brought us together here. So I'm going to ask Chad to bring up some photos, probably either from your website or your Instagram page, and there we are on your website right there. And that personal photo you got right there, that kind of sums it all up, doesn't it? You're a busy man in the outdoors.
Yeah, it's been really a good run. I did 20 odd years of newspaper work, which kind of got me honed into doing an annual report work, and then I went into advertising work, and then that kind of led me into the outdoor world, because why would you want to sell something you don't like to use, right?
Exactly. But down here in these still photos, I mean, that everybody seems to be able to wants to be a photographer these days. There's a lot of people taking photographs. You've been doing it and worked through this evolution of gear, which we're going to probably come around full circle on some of that. But what, for me personally, Mitch, and I want to know what you see when you look at these photos, but for me, when I look at, these photos, I can feel the raw emotion in the actual timing of the event. It touches you. And I don't think that, a lot of people, when they take pictures, don't have that ability. You've got an innate ability to do that. How do you do that? I mean, that's just.
I think it comes from actually being excited about that world myself. And there was the old director of photography at the National Geographic, Bob Gilka. I took some seminars with him when I was a young newspaper guy, and years later, I found myself sitting in his office in Washington, kind of remembering the fact that he said there's a lot of people that take pictures and there's a lot of people that make pictures. And sometimes in recreating moments for clients or for doing magazine work, the magazine work is more of a taking, but modifying, the reality of the real world via either cameras, lenses, and technique, or by nudging something into a spot where, okay, this is good, but if we go here, it'll be crazy good. So it's like the take pictures versus make pictures scenario is a real thing. It always has been for me.
So how do you instill emotion in those photos? Like whether it's the hunter, or there was one just recently of success of the catch. Obviously you're calling on some personal experience there, and then but somehow you're able to transfer that to a photograph.
Yep. Yeah, I'm calling on exactly personal experience. I mean, I've been pulling triggers on critters since I was 10 years old, and I remember the rush you get. Your heart's just going crazy. You breathe funny. Everything gets a little bit wild. And in the case when you were out in the real world and you're working with real people, it's kind of cool to just sort of say, hey, let's amp this up a little bit. Let's get something going. Or I will put things together. It's like I said, 51 years of staring through the toilet paper tube. It's been a pretty good run, right? I mean, it's like what else what do you want to do? Let's make this moment memorable.
So as a professional photographer, when you look at your own work, or even when you look at somebody else's work, what exactly do you see? I mean, because when I look at something, and I bring that because I am not a professional photographer, right? This is my phone is my camera for the most part, right? And
yeah, these are a little bit scary, man.
Yeah, no, it's
oh my God, I made some pictures of my granddaughter the other day. Oh, they're driving all the way across country right now, and I'm just sitting here just before you called me, and I was looking at some of the stuff we shot, and it was like, case in point. All right, took her fishing, her first fishing trip the other day. She's 2.5. She's starting to talk and express herself, but we set the hook on some fish, and we set the hook on a new fisherman all at the same time. She caught 2.5 years old, and so I went and bought her this little $29. There it is. That's
my word! Look at that.
They're good. Yeah, that's Alice, and she's that was her first sunfish. And you notice she was all about catching it, not so much about catching it.
That's okay.
That'll come later. When she's 9, she's going to learn how to clean fish. But yeah, that was it, man. She was sitting. They're on their way back to duty in Seattle right now. So
you're talking about your daughter and son, right?
Yeah, that's my son's child and his wife Sarah. Yep.
Very good. But when you look at those photos, I mean, or when you look at somebody's photo, I mean, I look at a photo and I get just emotion back, right? That's how I get.
Yep.
I'm just taking a shot in the dark here that you're looking at the frame, you're looking at the lighting, you're looking at do you look at more how it was created?
Yep, I look at all that stuff, and then there's that element of peak moment. It's like that shot you just pulled up of Nick, of me and Noodlehead. That's her nickname.
She'll love that.
There's justification in that. I'll show it to you. Anyway, so my son Nick shot that picture of us, and it was kind of gratifying. You know, he worked for me when he was in junior high and high school. I carted that kid all over the bloody continent, Canada, everywhere. So he's up down there shooting that picture, and then we got a sun blast coming in on his phone. He shot it on his phone, and he's up there. He's holding up something, you know, to block the sun out. So we were backlit, but he's blocking the sun flare out of his phone. I'm like, oh, where'd you learn that trick? Shut up. You've been doing that forever. This is a weapon, man. I do not ever go without a hat because I have to block light sometimes. So back to your original question, for me, it's all about peak moment. And, you know, Nick nailed it right there. Thank God the phones, you hold the button down and you got a motor drive. It's just that easy, right? But still, the moment's got to be there. It's got to be an interaction, eyes to eyes, eyes to the prize, eyes to the technique, whatever it might be. Eyes are everything. That's why the new cameras come out with, you know, they seek out your eyes for autofocus. It's always been like that. The eyes tell the story pretty much.
So that's how the new autofocuses are working. Is that one of the reasons this latest generation, and I just got one of the new phones? I mean, the quality of the photo, it doesn't mean that my content's any good, but the quality of the photo is exceptional.
Yeah, they're technically really good, and you still got to be able to figure out the moment. So if someone says, well, aren't these guys going to replace you? Well, when the iPhone came out 10 years ago or 9 or whatever it was, I was a little skeptical. And then after a few months, I started watching what rank and file folks were shooting. And I was like, well, that's not scaring me too much now, because you still have to be able to see pictures. You still have to be able to see. It's like the old editors told me back when I was a young guy. It's like, you know, pictures I can get stories anywhere I want. It's about ideas. I need ideas. So I decided that day that I was going to become an idea guy and sell ideas.
And I think that a lot of your photography work, for me at least, inspires ideas, and even some of your corporate work that is to try to obviously there's a motivation to associate with a brand, whether you're just, you know, doing the strictly a branding or some sort of motivation to buy type photo. It pushes me that way, and that's really unique. I mean, I think that's it's exceptional that way. So when it comes to a photographer, can they be built? Or I mean, or are you simply, you have the artistic eye or you don't? What's your process when you go build, when you're about to take a photo? What, I mean, is there a process? Do you have to get yourself into like an emotional, artistic state?
Yeah, there's that.
Are there a lot of outside influences?
I think the first thing I always ask myself is, what's the story? What story are we trying to tell here? And it always gets down to the story, even if it's a single picture, if it's a series of video clips, if it's a series of a long story drawn out in video form, it's the same story. And the story has a point. There's a point to it. So I always approach something like that in such a manner of, well, how can we best illustrate this story with something dynamic, pleasing to look at, compositionally workable, and so forth. I got a nice compliment from a neighbor here who used to be a television videographer for a lot of years, and he said, I don't know, you still guys that have moved into video scare me because you shoot such beautiful stuff. And the compliment was the fact that compose it first and then let the action roll, as opposed to letting the action roll and hoping something cool happens in the middle of it. And I think that's just the old still versus video guys argument, which, you know, that's why we all get along now. It's pretty fun.
So that's the difference between a still photographer and a videographer.
I think that's probably the case with, you know, It all gets there because, obviously the video guys have been doing it forever, and we're just us still shooters that are late to the video game. Are the technical challenges are certainly there. I never used to have to deal with audio, and now all I do is worry about audio. We just invested in a bunch more gear that enables me to be sure of myself with audio, where before I was just guessing. I had about 5 years in there where I was just, I didn't know, I was lost. I didn't know what I was doing. I hired a Hollywood grade audio guy to accompany me on a few shoots and teach me what line in and line out and mic were all about. So it's I was so stupid. I did not know any of that stuff. And I was like, God, geez, I got to pull this off for this client. And how, right? Well, that was a good move, and he turned out to be a very good friend of mine, and we're off to the races.
So, is the photography is it teachable? I guess that's what I'm trying to grasp here. So, I mean, you're talking about find the moment, and obviously you've got an ability to look at something and figure out what the peak moment is or what the desired outcome at the very end is. But the still photo, or even a video for that matter, I mean, everybody relies on action. We all rely on live sports. We all rely on that thing, but you're finding that in an outdoor environment where things aren't moving very fast, and they just kind of have to come together. The stars got aligned to that magic moment when you're sitting in a deer stand, the light's right, the buck is walking on the edge of the corn. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think it's teachable to some degree, but I think you also have to have like the difference between somebody who is good at maybe numbers and math and that sort of stuff versus somebody like me, who I'm a math atheist. I don't like them. I don't believe in them. I hate numbers. Ask my accountant. Creeps me out. So anyway, but yeah, I think, some people are just better at it than others. And I think the other thing about what makes good photography and good photographers is an inordinate amount of fire in the belly. A lot of fire in the belly to do it, because, you're running up against issues of economics. Gear is expensive. It's delicate. Doesn't like to get rained on. All kinds of hills to climb in making a great photo. But it's I think the difference between, you got to want to do it. You got to want to do it when the times are tough and all that sort of stuff.
So how much work are you doing that never sees the light of day? How many photos don't make it compared to the ones that we were just looking at there on your website?
Well, I think if you look at photos that make it, now you're talking photos that actually hold the button down on, or photos that are getting delivered.
Okay.
If you're going with photos that I hold the button down on, well, I shoot on an average, like if I'm shooting a corporate gig, I will burn 3,000 frames a day, 3,000 frames roughly. That's kind of my normal take. And those all get boiled down. I'm a vicious editor, and I might deliver 30 or 40 or 50 out of that 3,000. So that's a low percentage of what I call images that are going to live. And out of those, it's like it's all up to the publication whether they see the light of day or not. And case in point, when I left the news business, that was kind of a situation where if I wanted something to get in the paper, there was a pretty good chance I would get it published. When I broke into national media, I was working for Time and Newsweek and Forbes and Fortune and National Geographic and World Magazine, all those other pubs. That teaches you to put your big boy pants on, because you might shoot for 2 weeks and get a postage stamp picture run out of it, and that's it. I shot once for I think it was Time or Newsweek. I shot for 10 days in Minnesota on an assignment. That was going to be a cover story, supposedly, and a big deal. And I pumped the accelerator on that like crazy, man. And we were going all over the place, shooting. And that was the week that some nuns got killed in El Salvador. That became the cover that week. I got a little quarter page in about page 28 or something. And that was it. So the bigger the national and world audience, the tougher the entrance exam is, if you will.
So, but you know what? When one thing is, I have begun this podcast project, one of the reasons that I have launched this is because there's some great commonalities between people that are living and executing life at the top of whatever chosen their profession. So whether it's a professional athlete or it's a photographer like you, and who are the best of the best, anybody that is there and has got there has had a lot of denial, roadblocks. And we're talking about working for 2 weeks and all that comes is this little tiny bit. You got to really check your ego. I mean, all these are learning experiences, right? I mean, don't you just take each one and go, okay, what did I learn from this to make me a better photographer moving forward?
Yep. And a case like that one is like, there's nothing I did wrong. It was just the way the wind blew that day. So, you put your big boy pants on, suck it up, buttercup, and move on. And I used to have a sign in my locker that I poached from Beverly Bradford when we were in Montgomery, Alabama. She had it on the inside of her locker, and it said, "You're only as good as your last assignment."
And that was, you're talking about when you had a newspaper gig in Alabama, right?
Yeah, I did. I did. I was an Air Force photographer for 5 years, and I had a pretty good situation there where I was able to freelance at night for a local paper, which is one of the bigger papers in the state. And, incoming. And so I was doing all that sort of thing, and the best part of it was my boss was like amazing. He had shot for Life magazine back when that was a huge deal, and I remember Norman Dean telling us, he said, "Your job is to get the pictures. My job is to get you out of jail." Luckily, I never got jailed, but I got pretty darn close a number of times, that's for sure.
So what were the years that you were in Alabama, and what were you covering?
Oh, 70 to 75, it was a lot of George Wallace. It was a lot of racial stuff. It was a lot of tension, a couple riots, and then a daily run-of-the-mill knifing, shootings, and tea parties.
So what you're telling me is that not a lot has changed.
No.
I mean, you think about the comparison to Alabama in the early, late 60s, early 70s compared to what we're dealing with today, and there's a lot of similarities.
Well, there are, and it's not getting any better, which is sad. You would think we as a society would get a little better at this, but no.
Do you see it? And maybe getting a little off track here, but I mean, do you see a lot of change or similarities between those two eras? Am I right in my analysis like that?
Well,
what's different?
Yeah, I think it's really similar. I did riots. I don't want to shoot anymore. I don't want to go and get my head beat with a brick. No. When I was in Tampa, I was a director of photography, the Tampa Tribune, for a few years in the late 70s, early 80s, and we covered the riots down in Miami, and I had photographers getting bricks thrown through their car windows and get roughed up and so forth. We covered the Mariel boat lift out of Cuba. I figured out how to get 2 or 3 guys spirited away on shrimp trawlers, and we got them down into Cuba that way and got some of our work published in that realm. I mean, the human condition is like the greatest story in the world. I was pretty happy to be banging around in the outdoor business the last 25 years because it's all happy time, It's nice work. It's nice duty. It's great people. I make friends almost every day. It's, that's a choice I made, was to get out of the news business, out of the hard news business. I don't know if I see a lot of guys that have got 30, 40 years in that business, and they're doing great too, and they're great folks. I just got off on another tangent, and glad I did. I've had a blast.
Well, I grew up in the city of Minneapolis. I mean, in the city proper of Minneapolis, and grew up in the 70s there. And there's I was part of a busing program that tried to properly racial integrate all the school system inside the city. And I mean, I eventually left the city, moved to northern Minnesota because the outdoors are my true love. But I also know that we in the outdoors, we kind of live in this bubble. I mean, we're kind of, I don't know, we're there's an insulating factor around living in the woods, spending all your time on the lakes.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, you look at, I grew up in way northwest Minnesota. I mean, we had no issues of any kind. It was just, like you said, an insulated bubble we lived in. And
so where were you when you were trailing? Because you trailed some presidential candidates in your news career.
That was during the Tampa, Florida years. I was trailing Carter and Ford and Reagan and Bush 1 and Scoop Jackson, Jesse Jackson.
What was that like? What was that like?
Oh, chasing those guys around?
Yeah.
That's pretty heady stuff. It's always exciting. Getting bumped up with the Secret Service and so forth. And there I was at that picture you're showing right there is Jimmy Carter and his son Chip, Sam Donaldson from ABC News. Sam and I rode up and down US 19 and Newport Richie. He likes ice cream. We were ice cream buddies. And yeah.
Is that a plane or a bus? What are you on there?
We were in a bus there, and Sam was interviewing Jimmy Carter, and I just turned around and gawking away and shooting pictures.
Were you doing any interviewing, like media writing at that point, or is this all just straight
No,
up
I wasn't writing much more than captions and picture legends and that sort of thing was all I was doing during those years.
And then but you ended up, is that where, because I know you were nominated for a couple of Pulitzers, right?
Yep.
And for Spot News, what is Spot News? Is that Is that being in the right place, right time, right photo?
Spot News would be like somebody hitting a car, something that just boom happened and you happen to be there and catch a moment. That's Spot News. So both of my nominations were just that. A lot of people get nominated. It isn't that big of a deal, I don't think. But after that happened, I pretty much gave up on contests because they're kind of a popularity contest, and I don't care.
Well,
I don't care about awards and contests that much. I mean, it's nice to get recognized. It's always great to have somebody give you kudos for your work and so forth. But the best award I ever got was in Bevel's Corner, Florida. I went into this old lady's house. I'd shot pictures of her out chopping wood in the backyard or something for a feature picture, and she said, "Son, it's really hot out here. You want some iced tea?" And I'm, "Yes, ma'am." Oh, she said it like, "Son, it's really hot out here. You want some iced tea?" I said, "Yes, ma'am. I sure enough would." And so we went into the house, and there she had on her refrigerator door 5 of my recent newspaper pictures. She had cut them out and taped them to the front door of her refrigerator.
Did she know who you were?
And I mentioned something. I said, what's this all about? She said, "Oh, I just love these. I just love these." I said, "Wow, that's pretty cool." I said, "I shot those." She looked at me and said, "Honey, I like your style." So that's the best award I ever got.
Oh, that's it right there.
If you can make grandma's refrigerator, as they say, Alabama, you done big.
Well, it's I met you a number of years ago, right? And
Yep.
but I feel like we've been communicating ever since, even though we really haven't been talking, because I sit and I watch your photos and they come across, or I'll see a photo and I'm like, gosh, I wonder if that's Mitch, because that's really kind of talking to me. And then I do a little digging and I realize you took the shot, and of course it is, right? I mean, you've got that ability, and you've been doing this. What's your career now? Are you at 50 years?
51 on June 8th.
how do you stay relevant for 51 years in the photography business? Didn't we all have to stand still when you started?
I can't concentrate.
Short attention span.
Short attention span. That's it. Yep.
No, but I mean, so what do you got to do to stay relevant? Because I mean, times have changed and consumers have changed, right? I mean, what we're looking for in the feelings we're trying to, that says a lot for your ability to stay in the now.
Yeah, I think it's from having a serious bad case of ADD. That, you know what that stands for, don't you, Chip?
Don't tell me.
Ain't doing that.
Yeah, I'm with you right there, because I get off on all sorts of little tangents, but it keeps things fresh and fun for me, right? But I don't deal with the technology that you do. You have to have learn, relearn, learn, unlearn, relearn everything you're doing in that business, because it's all so dramatically different than what it was.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I did a talk to some photography group a couple last winter, I think it was, and they said, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I'm on my 9th career staring through the toilet paper tube, right? Nine different situations. I started off as right out of high school, a newspaper writer, photographer. I was a sports guy for a while, which is really a big joke, and did that, and then Air Force photographer, and then news photographer, and then magazine guy, and then writer photographer again for sport, for outdoor life, sports and field, and those guys. And,
but you have some, you definitely have some,
and then advertising and all videos. So it's like,
you have some business sense though, because at some point you started this website, Wendigo Images. And if people don't know what Wendigo Images is, I mean, it is the world's largest library for hunting, fishing, outdoor photography in the world, right?
Yep.
I mean,
I believe that still holds water. We were, Ellen and I, my partner Ellen, she just walked in too. I should get her in here. Ellie!
See, this is things you can't do
She's the shy one, but she's also the brains. So there you go. We started that together. Gosh, it was 24 years ago, maybe.
Get out of here. It's that long.
We represent the work of like 220 odd photographers from around the world. And she's still managing and running that thing. And that's been a pretty big business shift, but we're still selling licensing pictures for folks.
Well, it's I mean, I think it's wonderful because, and we're going to get more into this later, but we had, you're at this point in your career, you're really interested in helping others. And this is one of those things that does just that. I mean, you're providing a platform for up and coming outdoor photographers and artists to show their wares, get noticed, and make some money, which is what, turning passions, photography, fishing, hunting, whatever it happens to be, turning passions into dollars is a lot easier to think about than to actually execute.
Yep, that's true. And then there's this, you take that part of it, and then look at how do you approach it. And I have no secrets. I never have. I'm too stupid to keep any, so there's that. But we used to get new photographers would come in, and they didn't know a reflector from a bed sheet, and it's like, well, I remember bringing one guy in, and his wife, anyway, he ended up coming to my house, and I saw that he had a really good eye, and he sure had fire in the belly. He was lit up. And I said, well, dude, why don't you just come over and hang at my house for a couple of days, and we'll talk smart, drink beer, do whatever we do, eat some elk steaks, and I'll show you a bunch of tricks and make your stuff better. Well, he went on to become one of the best dog photographers in the world. Do you look at that as competition, or do you look at that as making a friend? I'd rather go with plan B.
Well, I think that elevating others around you, is a really solid business plan in any profession, right? Because people look, people grow. It's easier to grow with others than it is to bat others down. Maybe that's
like Sam Tallarico, one of my old photographer buddies from Montauk, Pennsylvania, just wrote something to me yesterday. He's talking about Lefty Cray. You remember Lefty Cray, right? Helped him out by giving him a camera some years ago. Kind of like didn't really give it to him, but didn't really charge him for it either, right? So he's off running around in New Guinea with this new camera, and he's as giddy as a bird with a new French fry, right? He's just going crazy. And he's telling me this story. This happened years before I met him. And he was an accomplished fishing photographer and so forth. And he said, it's better to make a friend than to make a competitor, right? You get to pick.
That's a good quote. That's a really, really insightful quote.
Right. And I just love that quote. And it hits you right where you live, right?
No doubt about that. That's pretty cool. So helping others, and that is a big part of where you're at. You're talking about bringing up your grandkids and getting them out fishing now. It's you've got a couple of sons, right? I think both of them are in the military, right?
Yeah, they're both in the military.
What do they do?
Well, one is a major in the Marine Corps, and that's about all I can tell you about him because it's all can't talk about it. And my other son is a warrant officer in the U.S. Army, and he is, he used to be in the SOF community, and now he's running satellite servers and routers and keeping all the electronics going for monstrously big outfits that are preparing to do whatever they have to do.
Now, who's all in this photo we're looking at here?
That's us.
Okay.
Yeah, that's us. I got to make that bigger. Hold on.
And we don't get a lot of, I'm guessing you don't get a lot of time like that either.
I do not get a lot of time with them.
Time.
No. This one here, this picture was shot by my friend Joe Dickey, who also works on, I work on all the Grasslands projects with him. That's his gig. I shoot B-roll for him and I write the stories for the USDA for the Grasslands project. But this one was a shot on a job that we were making a movie for Federal Cartridge. And we all got lucky as lucky gets, and we all ended up out in South Dakota. Those are my two killer badass bird dogs, Ozzy and Kelvin. Yeah, everybody laughs until they see how many birds those guys find. It's ridiculous. Oh, and you can't train Jack Russells. How about you go and they come jump in your lap right now? Whoop, there she is.
See, who says we don't like digital podcasting? Look at this.
Lately.
Oh,
she loves her papa.
So how often do you get to see your
watch this, guys? 20 years ago, there was a squirrel. Squirrel? There's a movie in that somewhere. I just haven't made it yet.
Yeah.
So we could talk about ladders and fires and fire trucks, but if you go squirrel, it work.
That's it.
Oh yeah, she's I got one of these bug guns. You shoot salt at flies.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh yeah. I mean, you gotta have one of those babies. So every day I pick that up, bring it outside, and the two jacks are they run to the base of the maple tree in my backyard. Pretty sure a squirrel's going to fall out of there when I'm shooting that plastic gun. Never gets old. I don't know why.
How often do you get to see your boys?
Once a year, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, no, that's not true. I try to go to them once a year, and then sometimes they get to come home for Christmas. Like last year, we took the whole entire Kezar clan and assorted relatives up to Lake of the Woods, and rented ice shacks for a whole day, one whole long 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. day, and caught fish, and the little kids were throwing fish around. Yeah, it was a riot. It was great. So we all had a good time then. I went down to, I rode my Harley down to Georgia last year. Nick and Sarah were stationed at Fort Gordon. So I rode down there to hang out with those guys for a couple of days, and then I thundered on up to North Carolina where Ben is at. His camp was Ewan, and hung out with him and Chris for a while. And so Ben is a halo jumper for the Marines.
Okay.
Among other skill sets. But anyway, so he thought it was a pretty good idea if I go skydiving with him. I'm an Air Force guy, man. We don't cotton jumping out of perfectly good aircraft, but I suckered for it. So we went, and that didn't kill me. So the next day we were having dinner, and he goes, "Oh, there's my dive shop right there. Well, let's go over. I haven't dived in years." So we went over there, and next thing I know, we're diving with sharks the next day, in 18 miles off the coast of Wilmington, North Carolina. Big honking sharks. Oh my God, dude.
Were you in like a cage, or were you?
No, I was
just swimming with the sharks.
Right,
People go swimming with dolphins, Mitch.
I had a little tiny knife right here. Is that good? That shark picture's on my Facebook page someplace.
That's remarkable.
What's that?
So how do you go swimming? How do you attract the sharks? I mean, do you just?
There was a shipwreck. I was 18 miles off. They had it all marked and everything. So we went out there in the dive boat, and Ben says, "Probably going to be sharks down here." I'm like, "Well, you dive with them, right?" His girlfriend, there it is. That's
wow.
Me. That's me.
Oh,
that was one of the big honking sharks, sand tiger shark. So they're not like known for chewing people up much, but you don't want to go banging around on them and hit them or anything either. So.
Well, I just had this envision, like, okay, let's go swim with some sharks, but you know what? You hold the carcass.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going again as soon as we get COVID out of our knickers.
So you enjoyed it that much?
What we do, I don't know.
Are you going to jump out of a plane again?
No. I think the thing about a bucket list is that you check it off and you're good, right?
What's left?
God. Oh man, a lot. I still want to. I got this new rifle I'm all lit up about. Oh, so yeah, I'm gonna make a lot of meat this fall. That's for sure.
Okay,
so,
that works. That works.
Oh yeah. So I've been bow hunting for. I have not bought meat for this house in 34 years.
Everything, just lived down.
Except for an occasional chicken, but cease for the house for me cooking. I haven't bought any meat in 34 years. So that means I've been living on, whitetails, muleys, caribou, elk, duck, geese, chickens. Yep. There you go.
Exactly. Very cool.
This guy's pretty fast, Chad.
So how do you instill that mentality in the next generation? Are you doing that with your photography, with your video work? Are you doing it one-on-one? I mean, I know that ensuring a lifestyle continues is important to you.
I think the lifestyle has gotten portrayed by not just me, but all of the photographers that Ellen and I have, held hands with in the Wendigo world for years. And then it all kind of bore fruit last year. I had a 50 years celebration party that I threw for myself in the backyard. We buried a 200-pound pig in the ground, and invited anybody and everybody want to come, and it was gratifying because we had a dang yard full of people. It was great. It was great. Old assistants I hadn't seen in a long time, and all that stuff, and the neighbor kids and their buddies and stuff. So after the night kind of wore down, a couple of them pulled me off in the corner and said, "Hey, we know how to do whitetail hunting. We sit in trees and we shoot arrows. But we don't know anything about this big country stuff, and we know you do. Would you teach us?" Well, you'd say no to that. You don't say no to that. You embrace it and you go. So I took Tyler out west, and we went out into South Dakota, and I'll say right off the top, we were unsuccessful at harvesting animal, but we had a great time. He learned a bunch. Because I taught him how to work the hills and how to watch the wind and how to be sneaky and when you should run. There's all that stuff that tree stand guys don't ever get to do. And that was borne out by me. Basically, I learned it from bow hunting elk and antelope, and turkeys too. I mean, turkeys hunted right is exciting if you can get the blind out of your head and just run after them and go chase them. But anyway, so that was a great experience, and he's got a new life skill now.
How important is success in terms of game harvesting in the mentoring process?
Right.
In other words, what I'm saying is, do we overemphasize the kill?
I'd probably call 50-50 on that, because we're all out there to be successful at it. But I mean, among the people that I have hung out with, no, it's more about the camaraderie and experience. And I mean, the coolest thing, the coolest stuff you see when you're bow hunting is like unbelievable, to other people that don't sit in the woods for endless hours on end. I told a story just the other day. I was sitting in a tree years ago up at our cabin, and it was snowing like Minnesota snows can do. You could barely see 300 yards. It was just coming down. And I looked off in the distance, and here came this little speck. Kept getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. Pop! Chickadee sits right here. And like pretty soon he comes and hops into my cap, looks over top. Chickadee, dee, dee, dee. Where do you get that? You get that from hanging out with nature, and that's just like the coolest thing ever.
I mean, that's when there's a moment in the field where, especially deer hunt, I get it more deer hunting than anything else. But if I'm big game hunting and I sit still long enough, I mean, you really start to feel like you're part of the environment, right? I mean, and that's when it's a special feeling, with or without big game around. It's
right.
really a cool moment.
Yeah, you feel a connection, and it's like unmistakable. It's an unmistakable connection, and I think it's a gift to be able to show that to other people. A gift to me, and my boys have been doing it forever. They both make meat and so forth, but not as much as I would like, because they're always busy and they can't get leave and that sort of stuff. But like that pheasant hunt I showed you, Jack Russell's put up 89 birds that week. Oh my word!
So do you have a hard time separating when you're in the field, do you have a hard time separating work from playtime? Or are you always shooting? I've always got 3 cameras and my gun.
Yeah, it's horrible. So here's kind of how I do it. And I've talked to a number of guys that are, were mentors to me back in the day, on that, or guys my age, like Ron Spomer and so forth. It's like, all right, here's the deal. I'm going to go on a hunting trip. I got to get my meat down before I can start working. And that's how it is for me.
Okay.
Call it selfish or whatever, but I don't have a lot of big horns on the wall because I got to work. It'd be nice to shoot a giant elk, but I'm at the point in my life where I don't need any more horns. I don't. It's like, I will get my meat, make a dough in the freezer, and away we go. And then cameras come out, and then I get really serious because I'll chase everyone else around for the rest of the hunt.
So you've been you've had a career in the outdoors now. I mean, for a number of years. What's changed out there environmentally? I mean, have you seen a lot of
I think the biggest change that I can see relative to deer hunting anyway is at our cabin. I came back from my time in Florida in '81, and I went deer hunting that fall. and I sat in my dad's tree stand, and I think I counted 239 shots before it was time to go in and get pancakes on opening day. Last year, same tree, same program, 3 shots.
Is that because there's less game, or are we choosier?
I don't believe it's because there's less game. I think all our dads and uncles are dead.
You think there's less? You think there's less people in the field?
Less people in the field. There were that many guys gone. Now our family's got a number of young hunters, but that's because I've got a great crop of nieces and nephews, but they're all in their 30s now, 20s and 30s, and they're all off running. Yeah, there you go. That was last year.
Nice.
A lot of them picking guitars at our cabin. My dad built that cabin by hand with a sawmill and a chainsaw.
That's quite the legacy.
Yep.
Really
and,
cool.
He had so our group is still kind of busy with it, but gosh, I know I've talked to a lot of people and said, yeah, the old guys are gone. We don't even go hunting anymore. And I think that's probably it. And it's also in northwestern Minnesota. But the number of shots was so telling to me. It was like, wow, what in the heck? And we're seeing deer and all that sort of stuff. It's not like it's a problem. But I often wonder, if I were busy in the waterfowl business, if I'd see that kind of a denigration in hunter numbers. I know that the DNR has hired me a number of times to shoot images for those guys to instill and get young people into the outdoors, And that's part of this whole mentoring thing that you and I spoke about relative to, it's in our best interest to keep the hunters going, because as everyone that's in tune to this knows, hunting dollars are what fund conservation to a big degree.
Well, hunters and fishermen in particular. I mean, it's all self-funded, and with dwindling numbers, you are 100% correct. It's a huge issue that I don't know if we've fully wrapped our heads around. Everybody's looking at everybody else to fund their passion, but hunters and fishermen have taken care of themselves and the environment at the same time.
I know. It's like that is, to your point, that's my biggest fear, is that whole thing would go away. And I would love to be able to take my granddaughter on her first deer hunt. I swear to God, I would. That would be like the pinnacle of my existence.
I mean, is that so in terms of like one of the biggest, would you say that one of the biggest threats for hunting in particular right now would be lack of hunters?
I would say, yeah. Lack of passion, lack of hunters, lack of knowledge.
So how do
lack of introduction. I mean, if I didn't have a father and uncles and my dad's friends that helped me when I was 10 and 12 and 14, who knows what I would have been doing.
So how do we connect that? And you work with a lot of groups, but I mean, how do you connect? Okay, there's a young person. They see one of your photos. They're inspired to go spend some time outdoors.
Yep.
But they have no means. They don't. We talk about mentorship a lot, but connecting. Like myself, I sat in Minneapolis, grew up in Minneapolis. Thankfully, I had uncles in northern Minnesota, but I grew up in Minneapolis looking at Outdoor Life magazine, literally cutting things out and sticking them on my wall in my bedroom, because I dreamed of getting to a lake and catching a fish. And tell you how old I am, seeing Wendell Anderson on the cover of Time magazine with a big northern pike going, that is the lifestyle that I aspire to. But I also had the route to get there because I had uncles that lived in Cass Lake in Bemidji, Minnesota. And
not only do I know who you're talking about, I remember that cover. I did not shoot it.
But right now, there's a number of people. So I mean, you can only YouTube so much, right? Or can you? Right? How do we?
I think there are some groups out there that I've thought I've kind of not been directly involved with, but I've heard about them, and they're it kind of comes from the back to the earth moment of some of the 20 and 30-year-olds. I've got a number of friends here in Delano that are really big into that, and they want to eat organic meat. They want to eat organically grown veggies, and it's all for them about the food. Okay? Those are the people who are going to push it. Those are the people that need to have the knowledge base to figure out how to get that meat and put it in the freezer. Steve Storch and I co-authored a book about, 10 years ago called 60-Minute Venison. And it spoke to that exact group, because got these 30-year-olds out there and they have a pickup truck. They have a bow. They have a shotgun and a rifle, and they have time. What they lack is the knowledge base of what to do with it when that deer hits the dirt. They're like flummoxed. What do you do? So we kind of wrote that book for those guys. So how to get an animal. We picked whitetails because they're popular. How to get a deer from hot and down to bagged and in the freezer in 60 minutes. And I've done it 100 times. It's not difficult. You just got to, as soon as it's down, it's meat making time. Let's go skin that baby out and get him in the Ziplocs.
But it's pretty intimidating the first time you go to clean any game, right? I mean,
yep.
First time I've cleaned thousands and thousands of ducks. I was a very passionate duck hunter. I don't go near as much as I used to, but I love duck hunting, mostly for the sunrise and the sound of birds coming right over my head before shooting time. But that's why I duck hunted. But remember the first turkey I shot, I'm like, how the heck am I supposed to, this is like a different bird. Well, no, it's not. It's a bird. But there was a factor there. You left lost.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I had a guy that we went down. Anyway, I'll truncate this story, but we had a guy that hadn't been butchering anything. He's my age, and I was showing him some stuff, and he was across the yard, and we're both butchering stuff, and he holds up this big gob of meat, and he says, "What do I call this?" I said, "You call it meat. You add heat to it and eat it. It does not need a title or a name."
But it needs a rub and a special grill and all sorts of things that the Food Network tells me I got to have.
No, two matches and a pile of firewood. You're good.
Hey, easy. What are you shooting this week in your studio?
Oh, we're shooting recipes. 10 of them. 10 of them. Oh, good grief. Some of them were. I had one last night. Oh, this is a benefit. I had one last night. We made, what the heck was it? Oh, it was sous vide. So I'm messing with sous vide venison, right? Okay, that's a scary little gift. So you take this big pot and get a sous vide heater, circulates warm water, you set it to 130 degrees for 3 or 4 hours. So your 2-inch steaks are 130 degrees all the way through. Well, 130 degrees is medium rare. So you pull them out of the bag, throw them on a sear box, throw a little bit of spices on top of them, and poof, you're done. And it's perfect.
Sounds delicious.
And it was.
Yeah.
I had neighbors infiltrating.
So we're talking about hunters, fishers, taking care of wildlife itself. You're involved in a project in South Dakota where you've got people taking care of the grasslands and trying to get it back to what? Tell me about the Grasslands project, because I know you're spending an enormous amount of time on this.
The Grasslands project has nothing to do with my outdoor work, but yet it has everything to do with my outdoor work. Because tilled ground, farm ground generally does not raise much wildlife, especially when they go fence row to fence row, road to road, and there's no cover, especially during the early time of year when birds are nesting, that sort of thing. The grasslands, on the other hand, and we've got 36 of these stories out now called Our Amazing Grasslands. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, just go YouTube Our Amazing Grasslands and you'll get the whole shooting match there. the stories that we are writing are all about the techniques, trials and tribulations, and interviews with guys like Cody Jorgensen there, who are really interested in all of those aspects of bringing the grasslands back, rotational grazing, earth sciences, soil health, all that sort of stuff, which is the basis for a very big underpinning of native ground, native prairie, wildlife production, and so forth. It's probably the single most important project I've worked on in 51 years.
Well, because this is affecting everybody. I mean, this is affecting obviously the ranchers that are there in South Dakota. It's affecting us as consumers, because a lot of this is the food that we're consuming through grocery stores, but it also is important to outdoor organizations. You got a long list of them right there supporting the project because of the wildlife habitat that it affects.
Yep. And, I think we can, buzzwords are kind of a big deal, right? So we could also say one of the things that I hear over and over from these folks is that the denigration of the tallgrass prairie in the North American continent is equal to or greater than the decimation of the rainforest in South America, as far as carbon sequestration, environmental impact, heat loss or heat buildup of heat, that kind of thing.
So explain that a little more. What you're saying is because we've
the grasslands
taken care of our grasslands, that the elimination of that actual blade of grass is as impactful as losing a tree in the rainforest?
If you look at the total landmass of North America, from Mexico all the way up to northern Canada, that grasslands used to be all along there. How do you think Buffalo, New York got its name? It wasn't because they had gophers. There were bison traveling the eastern seaboard when the settlers got here. And I liken it to when I was in Africa. I was on a hot air balloon, or 10,000 feet up, right at the point where you really shouldn't be that high. And I looked off. People ask me over the years, what's the most amazing thing you've ever seen? This is it. Sitting in a hot air balloon that high up, looking off to the horizon, and I see a herd of antelope, wildebeest, topies, zebras, everything, and predators following them for as far as you can see to the curvature of the earth. Turn around 180, look that way, and there they go to the curvature of the earth. Now,
so millions of animals.
If you take that and think about the North American continent pre-settlement times, we had 3 flyways for the similar kind of thing. Only it was bison and elk and so forth. And they would travel from Florida all the way up into Quebec. And then there was a central flyway, which went from Manitoba down to Texas. And then there's another one on the West Coast, just like ducks and geese. And they would take a whole year to cycle from there, walking constantly, never stopping. Well, then the Europeans came and we had fences and guns, and that put an end to that program. So the grasslands are trying to instill in landowners, ranchers, and government agencies, basically, they're trying to get the knowledge base back on how to rotationally graze pastures so that they don't get overgrazed, they don't create heat. They have water sequestration so that the water stays in the soil instead of runs off and goes dribbling down the Missouri or to New Orleans. It's all about conserving the soil, and it's also all about the health of the land.
So is it strictly for cattle and ranching, or are there efforts being made to work for ways to protect the wildlife at the same time?
It's for, basically, everything runs on economics, right? So it's got to be for something that's going to be sold for meat. So right now it's for cattle and bison, goats, sheep, and any of the ungulates, right? So it's for people that are raising those primarily, and when they do it in such a manner, it's very beneficial to the ecosystem, and it's very beneficial to the planet.
So
and if
how
you
do
could get that thought process going everywhere, you're taking marginal cropland that shouldn't really been farmed anyway because it's too hilly or rocky or whatever, and you're at least taking that part of the North American continent and bringing those grasslands back up, which is a great boon to ecology and conservation and wildlife production. I mean, I've walked these fields for 3 years now, 3.5, and I mean, boom, you're putting up tons of sage grouse, sharp-tailed grouse, pheasants, deer, turkeys.
Do these projects have enough funding? I mean, it looks like you've got a lot of support from conservation organizations there, or is part of your job in creating these little vignettes, for lack of a better term, but is that as a PR campaign to say, hey, we need to, because I don't know that I have seen an outdoor media coverage of this, or have I missed it?
Yeah, you probably did. They all have the.
That's not unusual, by the way.
Yeah, we're in a process right now. Successful Farming is running all of these videos in their publication. So that's kind of preaching to the right choir for now, because that goes to the landowners.
Yeah.
Who are the first guys that would instigate utilization of this information. But secondarily, I think it's important that we're going to get this out to all of the conservation organizations, and the sponsors are Pheasants Forever, Audubon, NWTF, all that sort of stuff. So that's like a secondary informational market, and they all have the ability to utilize this material that we produce also.
So are you involved in just the storytelling, or are you involved in setting this up with the landowners? And I asked that question because I'm curious to know the reception of the landowners that you're dealing with.
We find out who the subjects are going to be from the NRCS, the National Conservation Resources Service. That's a governmental agency. And they're also very big in educating landowners on best practices to make all this work. Because if it doesn't work in the checkbook, it's not going to work. But they've pretty much proven that it works great. So it's an educational arm for them to locate. So that way we know who we're going to work with on producing their video and their stories. And then I write the stories that we do also with those. So I get my writer hat back on and go there. Something to do in the winter. This is really nice.
Those of us that don't live in that part of the world, is there anything that we can do from here?
Yeah, you can buy grass-fed beef.
Okay. That's
probably the most important thing right there. Seek out natural grass-fed beef, and not that all of them do that, because it's a lot of the ranchers have got ground where they actually finish them on corn and that sort of stuff, but it's still sold as grass-fed beef, is what I understand. And bison, you can buy bison, and that's pretty much all natural grass-fed.
So when we talk, side question here, but we talk grass-fed beef, grass-fed bison there. I mean, do people treat that grass, or is it wild? We're talking about strictly wild grasses. We're not spraying it for anything. There's no chemicals applied to the grass. So if it reads like grass-fed beef, we think it's real grass. I mean, there's natural grass.
There's quite a process to getting a prairie back to being healthy, or getting a prairie back to healthy. And sometimes they have to use a little bit of help, either through cutting or a little bit of chemical apps, just to knock down some noxious weeds that are just ravaging the ground. But once they get their pastures healthy, oftentimes with proper grazing practices, none of that's necessary, because they're going back to what the bison did 1,000 years ago. They're grazing that ground really hard and heavy for a year or for a period, and then they moved on. So that grass has a chance to grow up to its full potential. So you think about it this way. If you're hunting elk in the wilds of say, Colorado, that elk eats what it wants to eat when it's at the peak of its nutritional value, when it's at the peak of its cycle, and then it moves on.
That's part of it. That's
I'm
part
sure
of
you've seen that. I mean, I sat one day waiting for elk, and I saw this one elk coming at me from 100 yards out. All he wanted was mushrooms. He was just grabbing mushrooms and just wolfing them down. So those mushrooms were ripe that day. He knew it. He sought them out, and he found them. So if you think about it, you're eating meat that's coming from an animal that's eating what it wants when it wants in an environment that it was meant to be in, that's a win-win. And I think it's probably, tremendously healthy for you to eat meat from that animal.
So in your travels, in your photography work, what's threatening us as outdoorsmen the most right now?
I think
What
threatening us, probably bad environmental practices, bad governmental regulations. We've lost a bunch of them lately. And all of that, you got to be careful.
Yeah.
I'm not well schooled in every aspect of that, but I'm an environmentalist first and hunter second.
Well, you got to be that way.
What's that?
You have to be that way. You
Right.
have. If you don't put the environment first, you can't take. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Without A, you do not get to B. So.
Very good. Well, this has been really enlightening, and it's been an absolute pleasure to have you hop on board the podcast here today, Mitch. First, before we go anywhere, I just want to thank you obviously I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for a career that has inspired me to get back outdoors. When I get wrapped up in work and in non-outdoor activities, and then I stumble upon a photograph of yours or a video of yours, it's inspiring to get back outdoors, and I want to thank you for that. And I'm really excited about all the mentoring work you've done, and this Grasslands project is really enlightening. I'm going to take some more time to learn even more about that when we're done here today.
Yeah, that's a good project. It's worth learning about for sure. And thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll let you go from here, but thanks for tuning in to the Wildside podcast. This has been Mitch Kezar. Have a great day, everyone.
See ya.